This turning is going to last until about the year 2030. So we're not quite halfway through yet.
By the way, I want to extrapolate upon this. I learned this years ago that we live in 80-year cycles. Every 80 years, history repeats itself. And it's usually, you can break that down into 2020, 2020, but it ends up just being 80. So you'll notice. And it doesn't seem by accident. It seems like somebody's orchestrating this and they've broken it down to cycles of spring, summer, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. You get what I'm saying? Like birth, youth, old age, and death. They're taking a page out of the book. That's what it seems like.
Well, this is all part of a pattern. And it's a pattern that's gone back centuries in Anglo-American history. I think it frankly characterizes the history of many countries around the world today. Like nature's four seasons, the cycles of history follow a natural rhythm or pattern. Over the last 5 centuries, Anglo-American society has entered a new era, a new turning every 2 decades or so. At the start of each turning, people change how they feel about themselves, the culture, the nation, and the future. Turnings come in cycles of 4. Each cycle spans the length of a long human life, roughly 80 to 100 years, or the unit of time the ancients called the saeculum. The first turning is called a high. This is an era when institutions are strong and individualism is weak.
Booming.
Society is confident about where it wants to go collectively, even if those outside the majoritarian center feel stifled by the conformity. America's most recent first turning was the post-World War II American high.
I'm pretty sure the idea here is we're in the 4th turning, which is the cycle of death. Oh, lucky us, to be born in such a time.
Beginning in 1946 and ending with the assassination of John Kennedy in 1963. The second turning is an awakening. This is an era when institutions are attacked in the name of personal and spiritual autonomy. Just when
a lot of that's going on right now, though. They don't want that because they want everything to be structured. And we're showing signs of the second turning and the 4th turning. They don't like that. Oh, sorry, are we not acting your play out according to how you want us to?
Society is reaching its high tide of public progress. People suddenly tire of social discipline and want to recapture a sense of inner authenticity. Young activists and spiritualists look back at the previous high as an era of cultural poverty. America's most recent awakening was the consciousness revolution, which spanned from the campus and inner city revolts in the mid-1960s to the tax revolts of the early 1980s. The third turning is an unraveling. The mood of this era is in many ways the opposite of a high. Institutions are weak and distrusted, while individualism is strong and flourishing. Highs follow crises, which teach the lesson that society must coalesce and build. Unravelings follow awakenings, which teach the lesson that society must atomize and enjoy. America's most recent unraveling was the long boom in culture wars beginning in the early 1980s and probably ending in 2008. The era,
like I said, the 90s, right in the middle of that.
Opened with triumphant morning in America individualism and drifted toward a pervasive distrust of institutions and leaders, an edgy popular culture, and the splitting of national consensus into competing values camps, red and blue. And finally, we enter the 4th turning, which is a crisis. This is an era in which America's
Nobody wants to be in the 4th turning.
Institutional life is torn down and rebuilt from the ground up, always in response to a perceived threat to the nation's very survival. Civic authority revives, cultural expression finds a community purpose, and people begin to locate themselves as members of a larger group. In every instance, 4th turnings have eventually become new founding.
The question is, if this can be all the way dated back hundreds and hundreds of years, like 80 cycle, 80-year cycle, 80-year cycle, 80-year cycle, down to the T, you have to ask yourself this very important question. Do you think that's natural? That's just the way the world works, as ebbs and flows? Or do you think that somebody's writing the future? Do you think that the people with the most money, power, and influence are actually writing what's going to happen next, then what happens next? Somebody with the pen, literally having all the power. Um, that that's what I believe. Call me schizo, I'll embrace it. Yeah.
Moments in America's history, refreshing and redefining the national identity. Currently, this period began in 2008 with the global financial crisis and the deepening of the war on terror, and will extend to around 2030. So, what does all this say about our future?
They keep using that number 2030. We'll see when we get there, won't we?
Well, in our paradigm, America has entered the fourth turning. What can we say about fourth turnings? Each turning lasts around 22 years, so this turning is going to last until about the year 2030. So we're not quite halfway through yet. Now,
thank the Lord we're going to go through to the first, because that's I think the first is probably one of the best. The first and the second or something like that, or whatever, but certainly not the latter parts. But yeah, just once we get over that hump, I think good things will come, and that will be when I'm a little older, when I have kids, and it's going to be great. We just have to push through this misery, and we'll be okay.
this is the winter of history. It's a time of creative destruction of public institutions. We're going to radically change, ultimately, when we get out the other end of this thing, our politics, our economics, our sense of what we need in terms of public infrastructure in our lives. And very much of that is going to be shaped by the values and aspirations of the rising millennial generation. What do we know of the morphology of these turnings? Well, it starts with the catalyst. And of
I thought he said
course, the catalyst was, like 1929, it was 2008, a sudden shock to our system. Say, okay, we're in a new place now. We're not in Kansas anymore. We have a whole new sense of where we need to go as a nation. We suddenly shocked out of our third turning individualism, celebrity circuses, and whatever we thought about back then. Things are going to be different now. Families are suddenly aware that they're not going to do as well as their parents. That we're suddenly see that our role in the world maybe is not what we expected. That's the first thing. And that's already happened. The other three phases of the fourth turning haven't happened yet. One, which will soon happen, is what we call the regeneracy. This is when distrust reaches its low point and we suddenly begin to coalesce around something, some leader, some movement we began to feel positive about as a fulcrum, as
this is starting to make me think that everything that we think is genuine, like we're coming together to fight against the terrorists, or we're coming together to fight against the fake 1948 Israel, like this is manufactured. This should make you upset and make you not want to participate in any of it. This is why I preach the law of detachment so heavily. You have to remember every once in a while, I'm not these things. These things have no full control over my life. I am going to detach and separate from them. Amen. And you do that, and that's how you maintain your power and relevancy to self. Okay?
Some point at which we can begin to find increasing trust in someone who can piece together institutions that can make sense again. Additional shocks to our system, either in terms of economic, financial, or geopolitical shocks, are on the table. This is what happens in a fourth turning, because at this moment of great vulnerability, we're going to hit further points at which we realize we are unprepared for the future. A lot of the assumptions we're making actually aren't going to pan out. We need to retool our institutions in a much more fundamental way than we've seen thus far. That's exactly what happened in the 1930s, where we kind of ratcheted down our expectations and retooled things in a bigger and bigger way than FDR ever thought going in 1932 that he would ever have to do.
This journey with childhood cancer comes at you in waves. Every day we wake.
Would ever have to do. That's where we're going to go, and that's going to lead to what we call the crisis. That's the third point in a fourth turning, when suddenly things get worse and worse, but we're beginning to match it with greater and greater civic effort. We're rebuilding our civic life to match this greater and greater sense of crisis. Then we reach the crisis and pass it, and then that leaves the final act in a fourth turning, and that's what we call the resolution. That's when the treaties are signed, the negotiations are.
This will be the end of the war between us and Iran. This is crazy.
Made, all of the civic cement, which was.
The world is a stage. We are all unpaid actors.
Wet during the fourth turning suddenly dries, and then we suddenly have a post-crisis order, which hopefully would endure a beneficial and working post-crisis order. We hopefully will endure for the next 2 or 3 turnings after that. The final point I want to make is this: is that people talk about fourth turnings, and I've been quoted in the media this way, that they're just bad, they're apocalyptic, they're horrible for all of us. I just want to make the point that fourth turnings are actually necessary, just like winter is necessary. Winter kills everything off so that new things can grow.
If this was 100% natural, I'd agree with him. That tells me what he believes. So he believes this is completely natural. I think this is man-made, and I think because it's man-made, it could go without. Now, sure, seasons are natural, but somebody is mimicking the same thing of seasons or from birth, youth, old age, and death, the 4 cycles. They're taking that and hijacking it and making it part of their own matrix, okay? There's what happens to the world itself, which is the weather, which is the seasons. Then there's what happens on this man-made matrix, the MMM, man-made matrix, okay, that they put over this earth. And this is the cycle of that. And they mirror it because they think, oh, well, that's going to be good and we're going to make it. I don't know their actual why they do this. Probably several reasons, multiple. And then there's multiple reasons why if they didn't, it would be bad for them, the way they think about it. But anything that seems forced or like manufactured, I tend to go without. I could do without it.
And just as forests need fires, rivers need floods, so does society need events which clean out the debris, which clean out everything that's sclerotic and ossified and no longer functions. Something which tilts the whole playing field of power and wealth from the old back to the young. This is what fourth turnings do. They renew us. Fourth turnings are the price we must pay for a new golden age. History has shown this time after time, and we're about to see it again in what I expect to be a really interesting.
Now, is that the truth, or is that what they want you to believe? You have to ask, is this the truth, somebody's opinion, speaking from the heart center, or are they reading off a fucking script? You have to analyze these questions to get to the truth. The truth, not my truth or your truth, the fucking truth. Get it?
Interesting and fascinating period in our history with which we can truly be all engaged.
Stop hate. I can get behind that, though. I only hate hate itself. God bless this great country either way. But, yeah, hope you learned something. I don't know. If you never heard of this 80-year cycle, now you're privy to it. Now you can go type it in and learn more about it. This was very, like, surface level. I've watched other videos, and I hope this video was, I had hoped that this video was going to be more like that, where it breaks down what happens in these 80-year cycles and actually what happens in history. So in the year 1817, okay, and then what happened in 1842, and they take you through everything, and you begin to see that this 20-year cycle that was the first turning mimics the next one in the beginning stages 80 years later. So that's what makes me think it's been a bit manufactured by people at the top. And who knows, but it's just interesting. It gets your mind going. That's all I got in this one. This is a shorter one, so hopefully I get more views on this one. But I'm just getting started. I don't expect views to pick up at all until we get going more and more. But it's very fun. I like doing this stuff. Until next time, stay safe, be blessed, and live lavishly. It's your boy Sigma the Stigma. Thanks for stopping by and checking out this reaction video. Until next time, just know that I love you all. Peace, and God bless you.